Hello Earthlings, Neutron Sound here. Album review time has reared its head for the third week in a row. Today I'm examining Animal Collective's new album, Painting With. I don't know quite what they're painting with, but I know they're painting with something. It's Animal Collective, they like to leave you hanging with the prepositions. Anyway, this is Animal Collective's second album without Deacon. He was also absent 2 albums ago on Merryweather Post Pavilion. He came back on Centipede Hurts, where he actually sang on the track Wide-Eyed, which is one of 2 songs I really enjoyed off that album. The other one was Rosio. And Centipede Hurts was the only Animal Collective album I remember thinking was just alright. I mean, it had some good songs and some not-so-good songs, but it didn't go through me like their first 2 albums, Here Comes the Indian and Sung Tongues, did. Although I did like at least 1 track on each of those albums. But for me, their golden period was on Fields, Strawberry Jam, and Merryweather Post Pavilion. And that last one was their biggest commercial success. It had the most vocals on it by Panda Bear, including My Girls, their big hit. Anyway, Painting With is the first album with 3 different covers depicting each member of this relatively new lineup. Anyway, let's get to the music. Track 1 is the lead single, Flora Dada, and it really sounds like Animal Collective. It's a shuffle as only they can do it. A shuffle without getting too rock, because they're not really a rock band, but they're not really an electronic group per se. They're sort of somewhere in the middle. They're Animal Collective. And it's got some great call and response vocals between A.V. Terran himself in the first half, and between Panda Bear and him in the second half. And it's got a great hook, great synth sounds. I don't know why they arbitrarily inserted a sample of Wipeout by the Surfaris in the middle, but overall great track. It's definitely one of my favorites so far. Hocus Pocus is, I believe, sung by Panda Bear, and it's kind of the other side of Animal Collective, the side I'm not so keen on. There's not very much percussion on this track, apart from the steady bass drum. And the vocals alternate between harmonizing and hocketing, where they're singing one syllable after another, which does help to obscure the lyrics, as if Panda Bear's vowel-heavy singing style didn't already do that. There are no real surprises here. It's got some unusual rhythms in the melody that make it hard to find beat 1, but that's nothing new. They've done it on Daily Routine and a whole bunch of other songs where they obscure beat 1, and nothing much really happens on this track in terms of shape. You've just got the 2 voices, and they're always singing together, if not almost together. The synth effects that start at the beginning just continue throughout the track, and yeah. Vertical actually has a bit of a Timbaland vibe going for it, including the surprisingly conventional snare for an Animal Collective song. I don't think I've ever heard a real sort of pop R&B sounding snare on an Animal Collective or Animal Collective related song, other than possibly the clap on My Girls and some of the drum parts on Enter the Slasher House by A.V. Terran's Slasher Flicks. But this is the first really sort of pop R&B type snare on 2 and 4 thing that Animal Collective have done. And it works. And if it weren't for the fact that A.V. and Panda Bear were singing on it, I could easily mistake it for a Justin Timberlake instrumental. But it's definitely not JT, because A.V. and Panda Bear's singing styles are too distinct, and also the fact that A.V.'s vocals are drastically pitch shifted at the beginning. And unlike on Hocus Pocus, having the vocals sing in canon actually works here, and that's mainly down to the fact that there are two guys singing with two distinct timbres to their voices, rather than on Hocus Pocus where they were both Panda Bear. Lying in the Grass is the second single. It's again sung by Panda Bear. The harmonizing hocketing thing with the vocals works a lot more here, probably because there is more harmony than hocketing. And it kind of reminds me of Guy's Eyes from Merryweather Post Pavilion. It's got the sort of signature Animal Collective weird vocal effects in the background, but all overall, Panda Bear does have a knack for pop hooks when he's not obscuring them with layers of vocals. And there's some nice muted trumpet samples. I don't know if they're samples, but there's some nice muted trumpet on this song at some points. Knowing Animal Collective, it's probably a sample. I definitely prefer this Panda Bear vocal to Hocus Pocus. Track 5 is The Burglars. Here we see something Avitair tends to do quite a bit, which is to mumble the lyrics really fast. Sometimes with unconventional articulation, like when he says the word burglar, he sort of leans in on the R. Burglar! Sort of like that. And it's basically the only word we can understand in this song, because his voice is kind of buried in the synths on this track. And also there's another unusually conventional snare for Animal Collective that comes in on 2 and 4 about halfway through. At the end, Avi does slow down the pace of his lyrics, and we can actually understand what he's saying, but then he doesn't sound like himself. So, Natural Selection is another Panda Bear vocal. It's a typical Panda Bear vocal in the same way that The Burglars was a typical AV vocal. It's got another 4 on the floor kick, just like in Flora Dada. There is some hocketing in the vocals, but it doesn't do anything to obscure the lyrics or the melody. I mean, like I said, the way Panda Bear sings is quite vowel heavy and does obscure the lyrics, and I don't mind that. Again, there is some, I guess, hocketing in the vocals, but it doesn't hide the melody at all, because the second voice is singing at a lower pitch and it's mixed lower, so it doesn't hide the melody at all, so that's good. And yeah, like I said, it's just a typical Panda Bear vocal Animal Collective song. Track 7 is Bagels in Kiev. I did not write these titles. Bagels in Kiev is a shorter song. It's got another snare on 2 and 4. A bit of a poppy vibe. Animal Collective really seemed to be going for the poppy vibe on this album. This song is no exception apart from the long instrumental intro and instrumental break in the middle. On Delay is my other favorite song on this album. It's got a nice sort of double time type beat, again with a snare on 2 and 4, and really clear vocals that don't get buried in the synth effects that come in halfway through. It's got some nice piano near the end, nice vocal chemistry between Avi and Panda Bear, and it's just a great song. Spilling Guts is a short song sung by Panda Bear with more pocketing in the vocals, and I realized at this point that it was the same technique he used on Boys Latin off of his solo album Panda Bear Meets the Grim Reaper. And Spilling Guts definitely sounds like a cousin of Boys Latin. And then track 10, Summing the Wretch, has even more Boys Latin style hocketed vocals. Except this time Avi is singing the second part. Golden Gal, fittingly enough, opens with a sample of dialogue from Golden Girls. It's a lot of things I've said before. It's a typical AV vocal. It's got a poppy vibe, sort of Timbaland-like drums. It's a pretty typical Animal Collective song. And then the closer, Recycling, has a nice pulsating synth on it. Once again, more Boys Latin style hocketed vocals from Avi. It's got a slight flavor of Amanita, the closer on their previous album, Centipede Hurts, although it doesn't quite have such an epic sweep. as Amanita, but it's still a fitting closer. So overall, I would say that as an album, Painting With is pretty much just as good as Centipede Hurts, which is not my favorite Animal Collective album, but I did enjoy it more than their first two albums, Here Comes the Indian and Sung Tongs. I don't really count any of the stuff they did before Here Comes the Indian as proper Animal Collective albums. I actually liked Avi and Panda Bear's first release together, Spirit They're Gone, Spirit They've Vanished, quite a bit more than Here Comes the Indian. But again, Painting With is a decent Animal Collective album, although not their best. This is Neutron Sound signing off. Go forth and be awesome.